the title of this panel is Who is My Farmer? Kind of some final thoughts before we get to your questions here from the audience. And what would you like our consumers, the food buyers, to know? What do you want them to take from this as far as who is your farmer? What do you want them to know? Let's start with you.
Well, I think that they should know that the farmers, particularly in our state, are very innovative. They manage and oftentimes very large businesses, so they have to be very good business managers. There's a great deal of accountability that they have to bring forth. Whether if they're local food, it's a direct relationship with that consumer. If it's fresh produce, there's traceability in new food regulations, so that there's a great deal of accountability back to that. If it's animal welfare, then because of the accountability demanded of the end buyers, they demand that same accountability of their farmers. We heard in the first panel the innovative use of GPS technology from Bo Stone. That's not an uncommon story, and there's many stories of that, whether it's in the animal industry or whether it's crop production. So.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
I agree. I feel like people should know that farmers are not stupid. Whether you're a farmer who farms lots of acreage and has lots of animals, or a farmer on a small scale, to be able to farm and produce is not easy, and to survive and make a living doing that is certainly a skill that should be respected and applauded. And I feel often farmers are presented in certain parts of the media as kind of bumbling idiots, and they're anything but. So I think farmers across the spectrum who are trying to do the best job possible and surviving as farmers are all intelligent individuals.
All right, thank you, Vivian. And Tommy, you guys are charged with feeding a lot of people.
Well, and it's an honor to be able to farm. I feel very blessed. There's a lot of challenges. You've got weather that's affecting things daily. You've got regulations that seem to be forever changing. Sometimes for the good, sometimes we don't think they're so good. There's a lot that we don't think are necessary, but yet they're there anyway. Not opposed to anything based on scientific fact. We welcome all new technology. There's just so many challenges out there, and we're always looking for new innovative ways to do things, better ways to care for the animals. How can we provide better facilities, ventilation? How can we do things to protect the environment better? And again, yes, it's all got to come down to business and what makes business sense. And to be sustainable, we have to, at least in some years, we have to make a profit to carry us through the bad years. But we want to do things right. I think 99 9/10 of the farmers want to do the very best job they can. And again, they're raising their families. They're not big corporations that don't care about anything but the bottom line. It's very important to us that we are perceived as, hey, they're responsible, doing a good job to feed, whether it's local or feeding the world. And that goes to our national security. The United States better do with one thing, and that's be the grocery store to the world to keep the lifestyle and the peace that we want in this country.
Yeah, and that's the thing about farming too. It's got to be something that you love, because it's not a guaranteed paycheck.
No, it's not a guaranteed paycheck, and there's a lot of adversity to it. And the reason that I am here today and that all these panelists are is we want the consumer to know the facts. You don't just need to hear my story or the farmer's story. We want you to know the facts, and you make up your own mind. But be sure that you get all the sides to the story and that you understand the farmer's point of view also.
Thank you. Dr. Thakur?
Yes, so I'm not going to talk about the farmers because the other panel members have already talked about. I'm going to talk about the product that these farmers generate, the product that you're consuming in your house. This product, if you talk about a meat product, safe for consumption, free of antibiotic residues, hormones. Even if there are some levels in there, it's not going to have an impact on your health. There are studies that have been done by USDA, FDA researchers that have really shown that, yeah, that is indeed the case. But at the end of the day, I think our key role over here is to really tell the audience that, when you go to a market, be confident in the product that you're buying. Just like any other industry, they're going to have challenges and breakdowns in there. But at the end of the day, we have good checks and balances. It's not free for all. You just cannot go and add antibiotics and hormones in the animals. It's tightly regulated, and there are traceback mechanisms. So I just want the audience to keep that in mind.
Casey?
The question of technology, and we're a small farm, and I hate being lumped in some category of like a Stone Age farming, throwback to the Stone Age farm. It raises hackles on my neck because while I want to get Bo to take me on a ride in his tractor because I love stuff like that. I'm all about technology. Our biggest technological tools are our smartphones and laptops, computers, and we're connected to those a great deal. And the second step down in technology on our farm is a lot of polywire and really good electric fence.
Bo's got a really big tractor, he said.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. But those are the things that are scale appropriate to our farm that help us become more profitable and help us, make a better product. And that's fine. And I don't like the charge that just because you're small. Today's modern farm and commercial farm looks very different than it did many years ago. But also the way in which it's done is very, very different, from something as diverse and large as what the Porters do to the, urban garden and the vacant, reclaimed industrial section of, Midtown or, downtown Chicago to, a couple of acres of microgreens and a couple of hogs that somebody raises. And, there are such vast different ways to produce food for people these days that what the modern farm is cannot be characterized, I don't believe, as being necessarily high tech, although it may be. If there's mistrust from the consumers about the food that you're eating today, I think if the industry in general and the government doesn't take some responsibility for that mistrust, then I think that's too bad. The fact that we can all get up here and have this discussion is a huge step towards trying to, educate folks and to rebuild trust. And so I would just say, once again, that connecting with your local farmer is the absolutely best way to find out this. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, whether it's good or bad or indifferent.
Just go see for yourself, right?
That's right.
All right, Casey, Robin, from an environmental perspective, I'm going to let people know.
Well, I think you have to understand, the way I would put it is, agriculture is not special, particularly. It's neither worse nor better than any other activity that impacts the environment, and almost everything does. Certainly anything of significant scope does, and it's always a question of how do you manage those risks. And I think one challenge when you've got a state that's growing and you've got urban areas that are closer to agricultural areas, and you're learning more about groundwater and surface water, and the public at large is much more tuned in to those issues. People know a lot more, they follow it more than they did 20 years ago. Then you have to recognize there are going to be issues that come up about how agriculture operates and what impact it might have on the environment. And I guess the one thing I would say about that is you have to take the emotion out of it. It is not about whether farmers are good or bad. I don't know anyone I worked with at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources who thought farmers were bad or who thought farmers weren't trying to do the right thing. It was an issue of we've got a problem here, and we may differ sometimes on whether it's a real problem or a perception of a problem, but at some point it doesn't matter. If the perception's big enough, you have to deal with it. And you have to figure out how to reach that balance. So farmers can do what they do, and consumers or other folks living in the state who use the same natural resources have a comfort level about how that is happening and how it's affecting their drinking water or the water they use for recreation or their groundwater. And I think it's not a comfortable process. And I think certainly the folks at the department understand that. I think all environmental regulators understand that. And I think you have to just remember it's not about whether the farmers are good people or bad people. Overwhelmingly, they are good people who are trying to do the right thing. But there are sometimes things we have to adjust, and that can be an uncomfortable process. And we don't always get it right. I mean, I think that's the other thing. We recognize that. I think many of the regulators recognize that. You kind of struggle through all this together and try to reach an outcome that makes sense. And you may have to go back and revisit that outcome 10 years later as things continue to change.